Hi guys, Dave here again, and I want to talk about something pretty serious today in this episode of Thoughts from the Shop. This was prompted by an article I recently read in Tablet Magazine, which is an online Jewish culture magazine. But it's also been prompted by stuff going on in worldwide and more importantly American politics over the last couple of years. And then finally it's also been prompted by things like the Pittsburgh and California synagogue shootings. So the first topic that I really want to address, and it also ties into the other topic, is the current state of the Democratic Party today vis-a-vis Jews. And right now, the Democratic Party has become, to quote this article, not just being blind to anti-Semitism, but it's becoming an engine of it. And by that, naturally, it's referring to the members of the quote-unquote squad. So you got Omar, Tlaib, Ocasio-Cortez, and Presley. They're just, basically, they're a bunch of anti-Semites. They're becoming the face of the Democratic Party, and the party is not really effectively dealing with them. And it goes to, they tried to come up with a congressional resolution to condemn anti-Semitism. It really got diluted and watered down. More recently, you had the Omar and Tlaib caused a lot of publicity when they were going to visit Israel as part of a fact-finding fact-finding trip, which, as it turns out, was involving the support of some anti-Semitic organizations. So it was basically a setup, and they were trying to do some grandstanding. The Israelis basically said, "No thanks, you're not welcome." So, but the thing is the Democratic Party really hasn't come out and strongly condemned the bigotry emanating from those four people. So, the Democratic Party in this country is historically represented itself as a party of the downtrodden, at least over the last century or so. And something to keep in mind is that if your political base depends on representing the downtrodden, you always need a supply of downtrodden people. And frankly, in the United States in 2019, Jews don't fit that description. And they've also been actively importing, as part of this new supply of downtrodden people, refugees from places like Somalia, other places in the Middle East, whatever, but traditional Muslim society, which never evolved past anti-Semitism. And as a result, you're now importing that kind of attitude here into the United States. And that's like inviting the fox into the hen house. It's crazy. It's totally nuts. So that's sort of the reality. And Jews in the United States have historically settled in urban areas, along with most other folks in the urban areas. The political values tend to be on the liberal side. Certainly when I was growing up, most of my family is originally from Long Island, so they had that sort of outlook on life. But the embracing these people who don't embrace traditional American values of tolerance is not looking good for the state of Jews in the United States today. And I think it's really time for American Jews to really re-examine their relationship with the Democratic Party, and they really need to consider, they need to ask themselves, am I going to continue to support politicians who are bringing in people who are against me? I think that's really something that people really, really need to look into. So related to that, though, is Um, we've been seeing a lot of things that basically they're tantamount to blood libels, and as was alluded to in that particular article in Tablet magazine, um, once once the blood libels start flowing, violence is not too far behind, and that means that Jews in the United States need to be prepared to protect themselves. Um, Historically, most Jews in the United States don't have a strong understanding, firsthand experience with firearms and self-defense. Um, that needs to change. Um, Here in the United States, we have something called the Second Amendment, which recognizes our right to bear arms. And I think it's high past time that American Jews start doing that. You know, I'm unusual in that I grew up with firearms in the household, and to me, they're just another implement. Obviously, it's if you've seen some of my other videos, you know that it's a hobby for me. But the main reason I own firearms is to protect the lives of myself, my family, and in that respect, it's no different than owning a fire extinguisher. Just because you own a gun doesn't mean that you hope you're going to have to use it to defend yourself any more than owning a fire extinguisher means that you're going to hope you're going to have a kitchen fire. It's ridiculous, and I've heard that from people. It's bizarre. The other thing I can also speak to is, having hung out around a lot of people who are engaged in the shooting sports as a hobby, is that I honestly cannot remember ever experiencing anti-Semitism in that crowd. Yes, they tend to be politically conservative. Yes, they tend to be more religious. They also tend to be very pro-Israel. I've had on numerous occasions, I've had folks say to me and say, "Well, if I was Jewish, I would be armed to the teeth." Thinking about things like the history of persecution, most recently the Holocaust. And I tend to agree with that, but it's because I came from a different perspective where guns were a normal thing in the household. Most Jewish Americans don't fall into that bucket. But it's 2019. It's time to take a look at the real state of the world. If you look at Europe with all the Middle Eastern refugees that they've brought in, the number of anti-Semitic incidents has skyrocketed in places like Germany. Yes, there are still Jews in Germany, but also more importantly in, say, France and Great Britain. And now we're bringing a lot of these same folks here into the United States. And in my humble opinion, it's not a good thing for us as Jewish Americans, because they're bringing their attitudes over here. They're bringing their attitude where women are treated like shit. They're bringing their attitude where they're extremely homophobic. And they're bringing their anti-Semitism with them. And one of the most popular books in the Middle East is Mein Kampf. Another really popular book over there is The Protocols of the Elders of Zion, which was, for those of you who don't know, was a forgery created by the Tsar's secret police sometime in the early 20th century, which was used to foment a lot of anti-Semitism. And one thing that Jewish Americans really need to understand and take to heart is that, we learned in the 1940s that the shtetl mentality, where you didn't resist the incoming Cossacks, because if they sobered up after their latest pogrom, if you've resisted, they'll come in and wipe the place out. Well, now we know that the Jew haters are going to come and they're going to kill us and wipe us out anyway. So you may as well fight back. Mordecai Anilowitz was one of the leaders of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising in 1943. And he's been quoted as saying, "It's better to die on your feet than live on your knees." Turn the other cheek is not a Jewish concept. It's a Christian concept, and we can leave that for another time. But we need to be prepared to defend ourselves. And here in the United States, we're blessed in that for the most part, it's a really tolerant society. Let's hopefully it'll stay that way. There's some scary signs on the horizon, but we are fortunate enough that we have the Second Amendment, and in most states, you can buy firearms, you can get training, and you can defend yourself, you can defend your loved ones, and you can defend your shul and your community. So I'm asking you, from one member of the tribe to another, start taking a look at that. Start being ready to defend yourself. Thanks. I hope you like this. If you liked it, please give me a thumbs up on the video. Hit the subscribe button. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. And I'll see you next time.